on your dial right now. SEC stories every play, every time we're Rob Brown breaking it all down. Yeah. SEC Sidelines sports on my mind. Rob Brown calling game time, highlight shine, executive mind. Brendan Martin keeping Rob in line. Like, subscribe, share it, tell everyone. Sideline sports, y'all come back real soon. Same place, same time, same tune. From the booth to the field, every Saturday feeling your home. We ride that rivalry, make that living room sound like the zone. From Tiger Grouse to Rebel crowds, every hometown heartbeat loud. Rob and Brand turning up that talk like you right there inside the crowd. SEC Sideline sports on my mind. Rob Brown calling game time.
We'll love it, guys. Got a great show in store for us today. We got the Roundtable Friday. Brendan, you were getting better on the guitar every time. I love it. Got a great show today, though. Rob Brown in Memphis, Brendan Martin down in Ocala, Marion County, Florida. We are going to be talking with Roman Harper, SEC Network, ESPN, SEC Nation. Roman's everywhere. A proud native son of Prattville, Alabama. Y'all know him. We love him. He'll be on with us about a quarter after. Doug Dean with us. Frank Duffy on special assignment down in Palm Beach. Say hello to the Donald at Mar-a-Lago where you're hanging out, wherever. But we've also got Kyle Odell. Kyle going to be a great guest. Worked in the office of recruiting at Alabama when he was a student assistant there with Nick Saban. Also did player evaluation for a while with the San Francisco 49ers. So a native of Oxford, Alabama. And later in the show, we'll have Brad Bellamy, Landers Ford, to tell you some great stuff going on out there. Looking for a new car, truck, or SUV, get your arse out there and ask for Brad Bellamy. Look, do us a favor. Take a picture with your phone of the QR codes. We are streaming live on 8 channels of Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. Brendan's right. Just simplify it. Do an Irish request. Hit the smash button. Y'all know what to do. Anything else?
No, that's it.
Simple. Hey, and by the way, great piece that Buddy and Franz did with Florida's new coach, John Summerall. And Kyle, welcome aboard here to the Friday College Roundtable. I say football. It's football heavy today. Look, they're starting spring practice somewhere. But don't you agree? You know football. Doug knows football. We all think we know football. But the process of trying to get better and find better players and competitive edges never stops. I'm OCD. I wake up every morning. How can I do a better show? Get great guests like you as a start. How you doing?
Hey, Rob, appreciate it, man. Yeah, it's right around the corner. Spring's a coming, and everybody's excited, anticipating it. And number one goal is just to get out of there healthy. Don't lose anybody for the whole year in spring. Is always, I think, every coach and fan player's biggest fear. But yeah, I mean, a lot to look forward to, and everybody's trying to get better, like you're saying. And I think now, and when it comes to evaluation, probably harder than ever, just trying to manage the load of transfers, new faces, and figure out what you got. I think, this spring period is pretty critical for everyone.
Well, I think a fair comparison would be, and we're going to go to Doug, would be a money manager, a portfolio manager, hedge fund manager. You're buying and selling stocks in there. And if you're going to get rid of one, you better have a better one to buy. You can sit in cash for a while, temporarily. But as David Hager used to tell me in meetings all the time, you'll go broke safely doing that with inflation, taxes, the cost of living, the portal, NIL. They're all issues. Alabama, I got a lot of Alabama friends. The ones I know, they love that place. And they got money, but they ain't going to throw it away at NIL. So evaluation's more critical than ever that I've seen. And Doug, jump in here with us with Kyle Odell, folks. This is going to be a great conversation. And when the Roman gets in here, we're going to have a little state rivalry, Oxford and Prattville.
The great Roman Harper. I've come to probably like Roman
more than any of the SEC network guys, and I hope they're not tuning in because they won't come on the show now. But Roman's awesome.
They will.
And good to see you guys, Kyle. And what Kyle is going to help you, Rob, with the demographic, the I don't know, it's not Gen Z, but Gen millennial, perhaps, for Kyle. Get us into that younger demographic, and he really knows ball. That's going to be fun. To Kyle's point, a great A-Day game is one that's injury-free, right? But at the same time, I was, as an Auburn guy, and I think this is true at some other programs, as they're trying to reduce the, shall we say, the margin of error from these evaluations when you have to go in the portal and it's such a speed dating deal, as Golish called it, at Auburn and everywhere, that you just find out in spring, if you're lucky, what do I really have here with some of these kids? So I saw that Golish, the Auburn A-Day game in April, he's going to have a real live game. Now, I'll believe it when I see it, that Byron Brown does not have a orange protective vest on, no live tackling. But I know these coaches have to make hard decisions about, because you got John Sumrall at Florida, came this close to being Auburn head coach. Auburn seems to be pretty happy with what Golish is organizing so far. You got to see real games played. And then, so many coaches, I'm interested to see, can Sarkisian finally make the breakthrough? One of my hot takes, it's a terrible phrase, but it works here. Which of these, I'll give you 7 coaches, you can add to it if you wish. Which of these head coaches break through to win a natty this year? It might be chalk. It might be somebody who's already been doing it, like Ryan Day, or pick your usual. Signetti will have all eyes on him. Lane Kiffin, Dan Lanning. I'm adding Marcus Freeman. I think he may have the horses to have a chance. Coach DeBoer. I mean, that one's weird because he was inches away from that when he was in his last year as Washington head coach. He could have easily pulled a natty down. Sarkisian, Mike Elko at A&M. I threw Josh Heupel in. Some people will call that a sleeper, but I need to see what kind of quarterback play they're going to have. But that's one of the narratives I'll be watching this year, heading into the fall. Kyle?
Yeah. Out of those you just named, I think, for my take, I would say Freeman at Notre Dame. I think they're a giant. I think they're going to be loaded. I mean, they were really this year. If they get into the playoff, I think that they probably make noise. And, the quarterback's coming back he's going to have an entire year under his belt. And if they don't, I guess, botch a extra point snap against A&M in week 2, they probably, at least they're definitely in the playoff and probably win a game or 2. But I think with everything they've got coming back, I think Freeman's just that he's got the demeanor. I love his demeanor on the sideline. He's always composed. But you can tell he demands a lot out of his guys. He's tough on them. He just, I think he's a really, if I was looking for a head coach, he embodies a lot of what I would be looking for. And I think that it's not if, but when for him.
Kyle, the only people that I have any love or respect for are people that were tough on me. And I got in the bond business. I had a manager came in and had us doing push-ups on the trading floor, cussing, screaming. We had to come in 7 a.m. till 7 p.m, Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 1 p.m. on Saturdays, until we were making $25,000 a month. Okay. I wasn't licensed yet. I was studying, but I love that because it's a sense of urgency. You at Alabama, Nick Saban, say what you want about the guy, but he is OCD. Talk about how, and all people say Lou Holtz, would he have made it in today's world? Better believe he would. I think he would. He'd figure it out. Talk about the data. How many players you think are on the board at Alabama right now?
Oh, God. Well, just speaking from when I was there and the process that we had in place everything was so process oriented. I mean, no matter what it was, like there is a process. If you have to take 5 steps from one meeting room to the next, there's an exact time you're going to be doing it. There's an exact time you're standing up. There's an exact time you're sitting down. Like it is that regimented. But it's that type of discipline and attention to detail that carries over into performance on Saturdays. And, I think there's so many moving factors now, like we've talked about with portal and NIL that weren't around when I was in the recruiting. When I was working in recruiting, it really, like, my last couple years doing it, which would have been 2011 and 12, that was when you really started seeing, sophomores and maybe even freshmen in high school actually getting offers early. Up until then, if you got an offer as a junior, it was pretty, different. A lot of times it was all the offers are going to seniors, guys who are going to be in college, year after they're done. And so when you're offering guys as freshmen and sophomores, there's no more football really related aspect to that recruiting process from there. It's all just sales and marketing to get them there after you've offered them. And now that's completely changed again. And why I think, staffs have to be so organized and, so spread out, because there's so many different avenues to improve your team. But how do you make sure you're checking all the boxes? How do you make sure you're process oriented and regimented and, making upgrades and where you need them, and not just taking guys for the sake of taking them, like you're saying about buying stocks that, you don't sell something unless you've got something more valuable to buy.
Yeah.
Rob and Kyle, we had legendary Paul Feinbaum on this roundtable. Was it a couple of weeks ago?
Yeah, that was fun.
One of the questions I put to Paul, and there's a lot, we'll all have opinions on this. I asked him the provocateur question of the day. Have we seen for all meaningful purposes, the death of the notion of the blue blood programs? And I thought he gave a fair answer. He said, no, if you let me decide, if you make me pick between, for the next couple of years, who's going to win the Natty, Indiana, as good as they looked last year, I think they just caught fire. And I don't want to take credit away from the genius moves Signetti made with roster building and roster management. Helps to have a Heisman quarterback who's going to be number one overall. You agree, Kyle? He'll be number one overall
for sure.
I'd hate to be the GM that passed on him the way he looks. But Paul said, I would still prefer that you let me pick between Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State. You can add to the blue blood list that have really racked up national championships in the modern era. But I do think, and Paul or Rob, you have a guest who's really follows Alabama, Gary.
Gary Harris,
name?
Tuscaloosa.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he's outstanding. And I liked his commentary on this very question. He said, here's how I see it happening at Alabama, for example. There was a time during the heyday of Saban, and certainly other eras, Coach Stallings, and most any decade you want to look at, certainly Coach Bryant, but that being able to wear that crimson jersey and being able to go and have the opportunity.
Well, Doug, you're talking about players that you sign, whether it's at Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee, whatever. And Kyle Ellis Johnson, former defensive coordinator, he did 2 tours of duty at Alabama, Auburn, South Carolina, Mississippi State. And Doug, we lost you there for a sec, but something Ellis Johnson said really resonates with me. He said it about 3 or 4 weeks ago. So there were 2 kinds of players we signed at Alabama. Those that wanted to live off of the expectations that are Alabama football, the standard. And there were kids that wanted to live up to those expectations. And when you recruit somebody, when you're recruiting somebody, I've had many a coach tell me 2 things about in-home visits. Number one, if a kid tells his mother to shut up or is disrespectful to her, they're out the door. Number 2, I don't care if they're serving deviled hawk eggs, possum innards, and hog jowls. You're asking for seconds. True or false?
No, very true.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, what you're saying about living up to the expectation or living off of it, I think that is across the board at any level of player evaluation. The number one question you have to answer about guys, especially going college, NFL, now they're coming with money, but when I was doing it, NIL wasn't around. So it's a massive jump to where they're going from no money to more than they could have ever dreamed of. So are they looking to love the game of football or love the lifestyle that the game of football can bring to them? And I think that applies now, just another level down, going from high school to college. But you've got to answer that, because I think you're seeing there's already been examples of guys who've, gotten a truckload of money and have done absolutely nothing with it.
Well, I wouldn't say
Gremlin's
Arch
got me
Manning
there,
is
Rob.
that. Yeah, I wouldn't say Arch Manning is that kid, but he's gotten a ton of money, and he's got a long way to go. He's going to need 25, 30 starts minimum to get in the NFL. Doug? Well,
Like the Wi-Fi gremlins got. So the point I was making, and I'll be concise, and you guys can react. That Gary was saying that Alabama will still, it might be 20 or 30% of their signees. There'll still be a core that is highly motivated, obviously by NIL if they're good enough, and they will be if they're going to Alabama. But they are close secondarily. They still are proud and have great motivation to be at Alabama because of the tradition, the championships. But it's not the 70% will come to any given blue blood program strictly because of pride and tradition. It's semi-professional now, right, Kyle?
Yeah, definitely. I think you look at just up and down, particularly Alabama's roster. The number of in-state guys they have on the roster now compared to 10 years ago is drastically different. And as Alabama, born and bred on the Iron Bowl and raised in the state, it kind of sucks to a degree, because you want guys who, grew up living and dying on the Iron Bowl just like you did. But a lot of guys, you've got 15 guys from California, they may never even watched an Iron Bowl, but at the same time, you're trying to get the most talented roster. So there's a balance there that you want to find. But at the end of the day, I think, each staff's going to rest on their own laurels of what they think is going to make their team the best. But, I can see as a fan, you want guys who value that tradition and, want to be at a place. But I definitely think that's becoming more and more rare the further we get into this era.
Those Iron Bowls that you see late fourth quarter, Rob will remember one of my favorite Iron Bowls, underrated, the 86 Iron Bowl. And you see Brent Fullwood had nowadays, there's no way the team doctor would let him back on the field, but you were not going to take him off the field. And you see that Alabama, Georgia, and these big rivalry games, somebody's got a severely sprained ankle. They're not coming out in a rivalry game unless the coach just forces.
Well, they're coming out now with hurt feelings. I mean, come on. But the 1986 Iron Bowl, Brent Fullwood was hit so many times. He was being carried off the field with a teammate on either holding him up, and he kept going back in there. The pride of St. Cloud, Florida, like Frank Ford was of Kissimmee, R.I.P. Frank. But I'm with you both. And when Roman gets in here, he talked about last week at the combines. These are job interviews. And I go back to the 2013, right before the Iron Bowl, like on Thursday or Friday, Birmingham News had a great story about how both Auburn and Alabama had players from between 15 and 20 different states back then. So right when you were in that recruiting office, that was going on. Used to be, you couldn't, if you were an in-state kid or from the periphery, Georgia, Mississippi, Florida, Panhandle, LA, Tennessee, you couldn't go to Auburn or Alabama and quit either because everybody would know, oh, you quit. You're from California, you can just go back and disappear. Now, it is different. Kyle, before Roman joins us, how would you build the culture right now? I'm tired of people saying you can't coach tough. I think kids that tells them that you love them and care more about them if you're tough on them.
Yeah, I think you have to. If you there's no accountability, no demand to strive to be perfect or get better every day, then you're never gonna, be more than mediocre, or you're never any of the goals you talk about reaching in terms of national championship or those type of things are all it's just fluff and smoke and mirrors if you're not committed to it every day. It's hard to recreate what Saban kind of put in place there, but it's hard to do it in terms of just the demands it takes to, regiment and be that discipline, from top down, day in and day out. But the principles of doing it really aren't that hard. It's demanding everybody hold up their end of the bargain. And if you don't, you're out, and I think that it just, I wish I really knew like how much leeway there, like with we're paying so-and-so this amount of money if he's 5 minutes late to a meeting, probably doesn't get handled like it did, 5, 6, 7 years ago.
And Rob, you'll remember there were the Junction boys of, I guess, was that mostly Texas A&M fame, maybe Alabama also, practices, and then the bubble practices at Auburn under Coach Dye. The practices you'd get charged with assault, with battery now as a coach if you try to run those practices. But Coach Dye famously brought his freshmen in, and he was going to really scrimmage them hard to make a point, to welcome them to Auburn. And his line he yelled at them was, because they were all, it was just one off tackle run after another. And he said, jaw to jaw, shoulder to shoulder, we're going to see what your mama put in you.
Well,
like a good Georgia boy would say, what your mama put in you. Can I rely on you in the fourth quarter?
I saw a coach one time in practice. Coach Bud Casey grabbed George Peoples out of Tampa Catholic, running back for Auburn, number 22, grabbed him by his face mask, by his helmet, and smashed it into his head, and blood went everywhere. I was at the practice. You could go to practice back then. He goes, God, can't say on the air, that's how you hit somebody in the Southeastern Conference. He said, you don't hug them. You don't kiss them. You knock the hell out of them. And I think, and when Roman gets on here, he just texted me. He's getting his iPad warmed up now, taking kids to school, carpool. He goes from an 11-year NFL career. He is Super Bowl, 2 Super Bowls. He's in the carpool line. Don't have your cell phone out, because that is an arrestable offense. Brendan will tell you about that.
I know, by the way, he had a nice career at Alabama.
Yeah, 5-year career there. I think this is a cool discussion. I got to ask you too, Kyle, when you look around roster management, general managers, we have a guest, Dave Bartu. Look him up, College Football Metrics. College Football Matrix, he does staffing for NFL and college teams. He also makes the Lights Out gummies. They're incredible. Hempforpros.com, plugging them in there, one of our sponsors. If you were to sit down and be interviewed for a GM position today at an SEC school, what are the top 3 objectives you would have on your list?
I think, one, you've got to really understand the coaching staff you're working with. I think you can't just look at players all the same in terms of no matter what their skill set is. Each position's got a defined role of what you're looking for that position, whether it's a 3-4, 4-3 defense, whether you're running a gap scheme or a zone scheme run game. The guards in a gap scheme and a zone scheme are going to be completely different. And, centers are different. You have to have defined roles for every position. And then you have to find players who may be a 3-star, but this guy would be a 4 or 5-star in our system for what we would ask him to do. So you have to have clear plans for every player you're going to look at. And then I think from there, you've got an objective would be, you really have to, field a recruiting staff, a staff that can cover every base you need to in terms of visibility, in terms of evaluation, and have a very established process of from a first look to a guy to a final evaluation. All right, how many coaches are viewing him in between then? How many recruiting staff personnel? How many times have we seen the guy live? There's just all kind of information, and then not even to mention, you've got to do relentless character background work on each guy that you're thinking about bringing into your building.
Yeah. I mean, I would think that process never, ever stops. And you got to keep up with trends, just like 200-day moving averages in the stock market. Doug?
I want to not let the show get away from us without expressing sympathy and prayers for the family and friends of Coach Lou Holtz.
Yep.
And I was thinking, I don't think Lou would mind me saying this. There are many, many quotes that Lou will live on a long, long time attributed to Coach Holtz. But for my money, and maybe it's because that Catholics versus convicts was a little bit personal for me because I feel it's coming out. But Lou Holtz's line, you guys after the game, if you want to fight somebody in the parking lot, fine, but you saved Jimmy Johnson's ass for me. I mean, that's going to have more staying power than – and 88, remember, Rob, but for that difficult road loss in the earthquake game in Baton Rouge, Auburn would have been playing Notre Dame for all the Tostitos. And I don't know if that Auburn team, as good as they were defensively, could have won that. Notre Dame just caught fire that year. But
and I was down there at that earthquake game. I was on the 50-yard line, and Kirk Crane.
Props to Coach.
Yeah. Doug, that was a hell of a game. And David Woodley, Tommy Hodson, the quarterback, is still, I don't think he's paid for a meal or a drink in the state of Louisiana in the last 38 years. Roman Harper is on with us now. Let's bring in Roman, and he is over in – Roman, you're in Charlotte. There you go, some beautiful artwork. Thank you so much for taking time to join us. We're talking about your great career at Alabama, then your 11-year pro career, and now you got to be careful in that carpool line not to have your cell phone up because you're going to get fined. But we got Doug Dean and Kyle Odell. Kyle's an Alabama grad, worked in the office of recruiting with Nick Saban when he was a student there, and also with the 49ers briefly. So we're kind of having a cool discussion about player evaluation, the NFL. And you gave us one of the great quotes last week. These are job interviews at the Combine. Let's go. Thank you so much for joining us as well, always.
Oh, man, no doubt, man. Glad I could make it this morning, Rob. What's up, guys? Brandon, Rob, everybody else. So, yeah, man, I'm just happy to be here. This is some art behind me that my wife probably paid a lot of money for, and I have no idea what it means. So don't ask me any questions. Like one lady has a big arm. She has a small arm. I have no idea what any of it means, but it's fine. So, it's art.
It's artistic expression. Roman, right now, kind of a theme today is the SEC is going to have a lot of players at the Combine. The Big Ten projections are this, and I'm going to let Doug and Kyle jump in. But 2 of the top 15 projected guys in the draft are from the SEC. Mansour at LSU is a transfer from Virginia Tech, and Keldrick Falk, in-state kid from Highland Home, where the Hyundai plant is, just south of Montgomery. Kind of, you know that area.
I do.
And they got 7 of the top 15 projected coming from the Big Ten. 10 of the top 32 projected coming from the SEC. 12 of the top 32 coming from the Big Ten. And then 17 out of the top 100 Big 12. And last place of the Power Fours, ACC with 12. SEC still leads overall, projecting 32 of the top 100. So I've laid the table. The food is ready to be served. Now, tear up all that stuff and show us how the SEC is going to get back on top of the college football world. Wave the magic wand.
Well, I don't have that for you. It's the same expression I tell my kids all the time when, all of a sudden they want to get out there and think we got some magic LeBron pixie dust you're going to throw out before a basketball game and all of a sudden start playing worth of crap. So, it's all about the work that you put in before you get there. And you're talking about all the Big Ten having all these players. I think Ohio State has 5 or 6 of the top whatever players coming out of the Big Ten, outside of a couple guys. Oregon has a safety. Of course, you got the quarterback at Indiana. So you got some players kind of mixed in there. But Ohio State's the big dog when it comes to these top-tier players. And, what does it say about Ryan Day not making the championship with all these top 10 picks? You got 3 or 4 guys scheduled to be in the top 10, top 12 picks, all coming from one school. And you're telling me, and their best player still in school, and their quarterback too, who's going to be supposedly a first-round pick. So Ohio State's chomping at the bit. It's a lot of talent, man, just to give credit for what it is. You give Indiana a lot of credit for what they were able to do last year. Ohio State, nobody is able to recruit talent at a level in which Ohio State does, especially from up north, but still been able to go down south, pick a couple guys from here and there, and be able to continue to do what they do. You give them a lot of credit for what Ohio State does. And the SEC, man, the SEC has to just be better. Like, there's no excuse. Like, I'm not going to sit up here and act like the SEC has earned that. We said it last year that there was a big year for the SEC, that they needed to get back into that championship talk. And I'm not even saying that you had to win one, but you need to at least be in the game. And the fact that they didn't make it to the game kind of let you know that they're still, like, I think overall SEC is the best conference from talent-wise, top to bottom. But that doesn't mean they're the best conference anymore. Like, the team with the belt, which is the Big Ten, is the champion right now. They've won the last 3. So you got to give them that credit. Like, I don't know if anybody's going to sit up there and argue for the SEC. with a straight face. I mean, you can try to, but I'm not going to believe you. You know, Michigan won it, even though since Michigan has won that thing, all they've done is crumble, and everything's they were a house of cards waiting to be blown down. You just didn't know how scary it was behind closed doors in that Michigan. And Michigan fans, you can never take the title from them. They don't care. They don't care. You can bring up whatever you want. It don't matter to them. They're like, we got our title. We don't care. And you got Ohio State, of course, and then Indiana last year, which is a magical season. It'll be interesting to see who does what. Texas this year is going to have a lot of people picking them, and I understand why. Manning's coming back. They bring in some other weapons, and Texas seems like they're loading up for a big year. But you never know, because Ole Miss was supposed to be the team 2 years ago, was supposed to be the team that they made the run, and then last year they came out of nowhere and got hot at the right time. So anybody could do it, and ultimately it's almost where college basketball March Madness is, that whatever team's playing the best down the stretch is usually the one that's going to have a chance to win it all the end, which is what we saw out of Miami, and then ultimately what we saw out of Indiana pretty much all year long.
Yeah, Doug.
I'm gonna let Kyle put a question to Roman.
Yeah, Roman. Talking about like combine and just prospects, I was, thinking about your experience at the combine and how, I guess, different maybe it is now compared to when you went through it. Just looking at, there's 6 safeties that run 4.35 or faster at this year's combine. In terms of, just when you remember, like, you were about to go through it, obviously it's a job interview, but do you remember testing, are guys just so specialized now in the training that they're doing in terms of getting ready for combine? And do you remember when you're, about to go do the combine workouts, was it that big of a focus, or were you, more, I guess, set on what you put on film for 4 years and knew that you were a good football player, and that was kind of going to be what told the story on you?
Well, I would say this. Well, number one, the film is always what tells the real story. A lot of times,
well,
you see these 40 times and guys running the underwear gymnastics is what we call it. The underwear. You either confirm or you make us go back and look at the tape. Like if you see the explosion, you see that, you want to see all that on tape, right? You don't want to all of a sudden see a guy running 4.2 and like, oh, I thought he was a 3rd or 4th round guy. Now I think he's a 1st rounder because he ran fast in a straight line with nobody else around. Those things should show up on tape at some point, right? And so it can get you from a 3rd round to a late 2nd or early 3rd round. Like you can move based upon that, but ultimately, when you're evaluating, you want to see that on tape. Now, as far as like these athletes now that are running all these blazing times, this is the best performance of athletes we've ever had at a combine this year, in particular. I would say this: number one, I never learned how to run a 40 until I was literally trained for the combine. These kids nowadays all learn how to run early. They all learn how to train. They all learn how to run 40s because that's where they're going to get tested or timed at when they go to a Nike camp in high school. So like they have been doing it longer. They're all a lot more explosive. And every year athletes are getting bigger, faster, stronger. Ultimately, that's just what it's doing. I look back at, the guys before me, like, the old heads before me. I mean, guys were smoking Black and Milds in the locker room. Like that was the thing. Then you look back at my dad's age, they were drinking beers right after practice in the ice tub. So it's like, and before that, they were smoking cigarettes at halftime on the sidelines. So
yes,
like the game has continued to progress. We've gotten healthier. Guys have gotten bigger, faster, more explosive. They understand that. And that's why it's such a violent game at times. But, it's a lot of guys that can run fast, but ultimately, like the Sonny Styles kids. Like I think he's a really good player, but he didn't look like that on.
Well, and Roman, you're talking about not. It's like the ACT now. Kids start taking that in 7th grade, and come back with us. But you froze up there for a second. But
he didn't look like he was going to State. I thought he was a good player, but I didn't. Sometimes you just have rare skills, and guys are able to
Yeah, Doug, jump in here with Roman Harper, SEC Network. Great discussion on the combine and how the SEC can get back on top. Sounds like got to do a better job of development and coaching.
One, and to Kyle and Roman's point, one of Coach Dye's legendary defensive assistants gave me a lesson which I deserved. I was the coach. Do you think we're going to start signing more big and physical linebackers? And he said, well, that's fine. Those metrics are great, Doug, but I always wanted to sign a serious football player, a ball player. Like they just have a nose for the ball. They play violent. They may not have the same measurables, but in college, maybe you can do some of that. Roman, when we were having technical difficulties a week ago, I wanted to ask you, you talked about how do you learn mental toughness, physical toughness, resilience, and you mentioned your mom and people influential early in your life. Certainly, you're always going to have great coaching when you go to Alabama, and not to mention the NFL. But I wanted to ask you to tell us, because I think high school players face a unique challenge getting an opportunity now because the portal, like production, being able to see it and hire it, go get it, is maybe more valuable than a high school senior that wants 7-figure NIL. But talk about the coaching you got from the great Bill Clark, who I have enormous respect for, Bill Clark, and how influential that was in your development, if you're still with us, Roman.
Yeah. Well, and I think that is a great question about development, and it starts at such a young age, Doug. I mean, if you don't get it, it's harder to teach it when a guy's been playing football for 10 years. I mean, if you develop a lot of bad habits just because you were the biggest, the fastest, or the strongest kid on your team. I mean, that seems to me, and Kyle, you saw it in the evaluation at Alabama every day for the whole time you were there, and it works.
Yeah, definitely. And, one thing else I've thought about is, I think that obviously as athletes are training earlier and, doing more specialized things and are faster, more explosive, like Roman was saying, I think that also we've brought in more athletes to the game due to the safety rules. Like I think targeting, the protecting receivers specifically. I think there's a lot of guys now, athletes that were on a basketball court and probably, a 6'3" or 6'4" big guy on their high school team, really good basketball player that wouldn't have played football because they didn't want to get their head taken off over the middle back when Roman was playing, that I think now aren't afraid to go out and play football. And so I think there's a lot more athletes, specifically at skill positions, a lot more guys in the game now because football now it's just not, back, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, it was such a emphasis on physical, mental toughness and violence.
Yeah. Well,
how you won a football game.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, you start looking at kids have a good freshman year, a few good games as a freshman. Sophomore year, they call it a sophomore slump. I just think, how can you make a first impression? Then the third year, these kids, a lot of them play 3 or 4 games, and their handlers are telling them, slow down, come up with turf toe or something. So look, if you've got the all-time rushing record or receiving record or passing record at a school, it's probably never going to be broken. That's just where we are. And I think that part of it right there, it's development. I mean, and Dave Bartu talks about it so much. 25 to 30 starts at a minimum is what you need to make it in the NFL. And because you look at these guys, Mac Jones had 13 or 14 starts at Alabama, and he started off with success with the Patriots, and now he's been up and down. Anthony Richardson, the number 4 pick. Oh yeah, all the measurables were good, but it's all hat and no cattle. Okay. Yeah. Yet you could run and do all that stuff in compression shorts and compression t-shirts. It's like the 7-on-7 camps, pajama football. How many tough, hard-nosed, how many Barrett Joneses do we have on the offensive line, say at Alabama or Florida or Georgia right now? Yeah. You know Barrett. I know Barrett. Yeah. I mean, not many people can raise their hand and have 3 national championship rings on one hand. 3 out of 4. Meatloaf said 2 out of 3 ain't bad. 3 out of 4 is even better. Hard to believe. Where's Barrett Jones? Is there any kid of that character? It's hard to find those nowadays.
And just not even what he brought on the field from. I mean, Barrett was such a smart football player and so versatile. He played, I think, literally every position on the offensive line at some point during his Alabama career. But just from an intangible, that's when you're talking about culture and leadership, those are the kind of guys you have to have. You have to have players have to, at the end of the day, players are the ones that have to drive the culture. And so you've got to have guys like a Barrett Jones, Jonathan Allen, in my experience, is probably one of the best too, of just demanding the best from everyone around you. And, if you don't have players leading that, and particularly your best players leading it, then you're going to be always swimming upstream from a culture standpoint.
Doug.
Pivoting a little to a topic that's going to be right smack in front of us, guys, in a matter of weeks. And it's already making all the podcast rounds. Have we just skipped March Madness? It feels like, unless you're in a true basketball state, which Alabama used to be, and Auburn will have to restore that. Coach Oates is doing his part. But the Texas is going to get a lot of the play as far as, picking them to win a natty. But trouble on the schedule a little bit, potentially. September 12th, Ohio State game. They get them in Austin. At Tennessee, should be a win, but, man, Neyland Stadium, weird things can happen. Georgia almost found out last year, except they were the beneficiary of a muffed late field goal by the Vols. Oklahoma game in Dallas. And then by mid-October, October 17th, they host Florida and Ole Miss back-to-back. Ole Miss especially, but I'm not even counting out Florida. Summerall might have them rolling by then. Then the game that's going to people will really look forward to watching, since it's in Baton Rouge. Sark goes to Baton Rouge to face Lane Kiffin. And I would predict by that point, it could very well be that the winner of that game is sitting pretty for the playoff selection.
Yeah, and LSU is still just licking their chops to return the favor of that sauna bath locker room at the 2019 LSU visit to Austin. They won in a shootout in that maybe greatest season ever in college football with Brady. Joe Burrow at quarterback, Joe Brady passing game coordinator.
Sark's got to prove it to me, though, Rob. I'm not saying he won't. I think he's an outstanding coach. But the hardest thing, arguably, is getting over that initial hump to win a natty.
Well, he does underperform his talent every year. And Kyle, Arch Manning, the name is powerful, but right now, if you're picking the top quarterbacks in the SEC, I know this is kind of putting you on the spot, but where would you rank him going into the 26th season?
It's hard because you're thinking about what from what you've seen from Arch to this point. It's hard to. I would say I'd probably put him around 5 based on what you've seen. But I really do expect him to be better. Sark's whole system last year just looked watered down to a degree, and I really felt like I could put my thumb on why. Sark has always been so extravagant with pre-snap motions, misdirection, smoke mirrors, and it seemed like there was just very little of any of that last year in that offense. Arch never looked comfortable from a timing perspective. His rhythm, his footwork, just everything just looked a tick off. So I think it's going to be real interesting to see, how they look. What'd you say? September 12th, they have Ohio State at home.
Yeah.
Correct.
If they go 9-3 again and drop that one and miss the playoff again, they're gonna be all over themselves. They would get rid of that game right now if they could.
What you were seeing, I'm sorry, finish your point, Cal.
No, I'm just saying, but based on the system they're in and what we see from guys last year, I think I would take Gunnar Stockton at Georgia. and based on what they're running, he does what they ask him to do extremely well. There's a lot of unknowns. Byron Brown has killed it with Golish at South Florida, and I have a hard time believing he's not going to be able to step in and recreate a lot of what they've been able to do. And that offense in general just stresses a defense for 60 minutes. So, and again, a guy that's played
Trinidad
a lot of football.
Trinidad, you got him top 5?
For sure, probably one.
Yeah.
And the one on that one I have to watch with curiosity is how much was Lane Kiffin, the driver in Trinidad's unbelievable year, at some level, but I don't think that means he just has a drop-off year and looks terrible. But I think after you get past those 4 or 5-ish quarterbacks, it's not necessarily the strongest QB year. No. At least as we sit in March. It may look completely different by September.
Yeah, and then we'll go back to Roman. One thing people don't talk about, Texas had to replace 4 starting offensive linemen last year. Roman back on with us right now. Roman, looking at the at what we've been talking about, evaluation, combines, and everything, pick up where you were. You were making a lot of points about fast guys, speed. Dave Bartu says of the 5 fastest NFL teams last year, 4 out of 5 did not make the playoffs. He said, be careful about speed. He goes, it's not real. He goes, you got to have that football mind, and be in the right place at the right time is more important than just running a straight 40 in a line in compression shorts.
Well, it's just not football, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's tough. And I think that people get caught up in all these metrics and numbers and they're not, if you're not a good football player, Kyle, it's you can be fast, but you're out of position most of the time. How are you going to make it work?
If I'm telling you, you could give me the best or like the best athlete you could possibly dream up and watch their tape. If they don't have instincts, it is a drag to watch them try to play football. But you give me a guy that's a mediocre athlete with elite instincts, it's the funnest tape you'll ever watch. Instincts are everything. The one guy that comes to mind from San Francisco scouting days was Chris Borland, was an inside linebacker at Wisconsin. He retired early with concussion things, but he was 5'10", 230 pounds, very average athlete. Nothing about his athletic profile said that he should be doing the things he could do on a football field. But his rookie year, he had he led our team in tackles, had I think 5 or 6 interceptions, forced fumbles. The guy just knew where the ball was going and could find the football. And those are the guys, I don't care, what you run a 40 in, your play speed and the speed that shows up on the tape is at the end of the day, what you're looking for.
I would bet some of those guys like you're describing, like I said, it was Coach Joe Witt that said, I just want to sign a ball player, Doug. But I bet they're fanatics at film study, obsessive film study, finding one little thing, one little tell of their opponent that gives them an advantage.
100%.
Yeah. Well, anything. Roman, jump back in here when you can. Yeah. Roman, I know Doug had a great question about Bill Clark, your former coach down at Prattville, the development and what he meant to your career.
Coach Clark taught me a lot, man, just on how to prepare mentally for a game, not really getting so emotionally involved in understanding the execution within the game is what it really comes down to. The Raws and everything pregame is great.
No.
Yeah. Well, and
unless you're mentally ready to go. So that was the one thing I really learned from Coach Clark about the mental aspect of the game. And then the preparation going into it. I just, hearing Kyle talk about Chris Borland, what a great story. San Francisco's linebackers get hurt that year. Borland fills in and has a Pro Bowl type year and literally walks away that next offseason. And he was just like, wow, the guy had everything all in front of him. He might have been defensive rookie of the year. He did so many great things in that short amount of time in a big city like San Francisco. where you had all these great linebackers in front of him. I was playing when he did this. It really took everybody back. I don't remember. Was it Navarro Bowman that got hurt? I forget which linebacker got hurt. Somebody got hurt, and then he filled in. Do you remember, Kyle?
Willis had the toe, and then Bowman was coming off. Yeah, Patrick Willis had the toe injury, and then Bowman had the knee blown out in Seattle the year in the NFC Championship game the year before.
That's what it was. But he balled out and then walked away. And you're right. Sometimes it's not about the numbers. It's not about the speed profile and everything else that everybody loves to focus on. It's really just about the tape. Like, what do they look like when you cut on the tape? And he's like, Coach, I never forget. Can you guys still hear me?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay. I never forget when Sean Payton always breaks down like my draft class. Okay, we had Reggie Bush. No brainer. He fell to us in Houston from Houston. Houston's taking Mario Williams. We're taking the best player in the draft. Reggie Bush is coming to us. Reggie doesn't want to come to New Orleans, but it don't matter. We're drafting him. Second round, they trade back. They pick up me. All right. They're like, all right, Roman Harper. He checks all the boxes, you know. And these are the things that people don't pay attention to when you're in this drafting process. People pay attention to everything else. He treats people great. All right. He's talking to the lunch lady, the trash, like, great person. So that part matters. 2-parent home. That's a good box to check. All right. Dad was a coach. That's a great box to check. They said, you know, he likes to party. All right. That's not always great, but he loves football. Completely committed to it. He's committed to football. He's not going to, when it comes to football, coach, you ain't got to count on nothing else. He's going to be there. Okay. That's a great box to check. How is he as a person? He's reliable. He's like, so like all these boxes that like people don't pay attention to, those are the things that everybody's asking. So for me, I almost felt offended when he was like, Roman was a safe pick. He went to a big school in the SEC, so you know he played great. He was a 3-year starter at an SEC school, checked all these other boxes, turn in the pick. Then we had my guy in the 4th round, Jari Evans, a tackle out of Bloomsburg, right, Pennsylvania, small school, injury in high school. I don't know. The tape is grainy. You know, it's like all the other things that you're worried about. And like, how does he project? We don't really know. That's why you go in the 4th round and not a 2nd round, right? Just doesn't check as many boxes. So you take a little bit more time on it, a little bit more deeper of evaluation. He turns out to be the best player out of all of us, right? 5th round pick for us that year, Rob Ninkovich. Went to JUCO, played at Purdue, good player. He checked a lot of boxes. Sean Payton didn't have the right vision for him when you bring him into the building. You got to have the right vision for every player you bring into your building as well, or you're going to have guys that don't pop for you, but then they're going to go somewhere else in 3 years and pop for another team, and you're going to look back and regret yourself. Rob Ninkovich is the example that Sean Payton uses every year, every offseason, talking about players and vision that you got to have for that player once you get him in your building. And so you just never know. But ultimately, man, Rob, it's all about checking the amount of boxes and getting one team to fall in love with you. That's all you got to have is just one.
Yeah, and you got 32 options. And it just seems to me like what you do your whole time, they're paying attention to it. And I think if you could address the Alabama team or the Georgia team or the Auburn team and you were talking to them, you'd want to tell them, hey, guys, you got to pay attention to the details. It's like in the financial services industry, people that are interviewed, you better know this, your social media profile is part of your resume, whether you know it or not. And if you've been doing stupid stuff,
Rob, I'm sorry, I can't hear right now. I got to try something else.
Okay. But that is it. You know, it's a problem that you have when you're being evaluated. Brad Bellamy, I saw you there for a second from LandersFordMemphis.com. Hopefully we can get you back on the screen here. But, you know, people have got to pay attention. It is a job interview. They're going to, and typically when you're hired for your first job out of college, you might be making, I don't know, it just depends on what you're doing, 50 to 100,000 a year. In this case, in the NFL, it could be millions. I would think they'd ask a lot more questions than just what were your grades What was your GPA? I certainly didn't get my job based on my GPA. I got my job because I said I'll be the best hire you've ever made in your life. And I always try to tell people that if you don't believe that, then stay in bed. I mean, that's it. But Doug, jump back in here with us. Great
Appreciate
discussion. And hopefully we can get everybody back on here. But it's like flying a plane, man. Keep going.
The clock may strike midnight on this show. There's always next Friday, right? But I want to ask Roman on some show upcoming to pretend he is interviewing Alex Golish. It could also be Josh Heupel. Any of these coaches that really love to run that face melter offense with this nonstop pace. If I'm a defensive coordinator, the sort of the stereotype is they hate that offense because it's going to fatigue their defense, and there's some truth to that. But I was curious if a defensive mind like Roman would welcome a team that, who cares if you win 10 games, let's say 48-42 on average. Do you really care, or is it important to a defensive mind to get in games where you're going to win at 17-13 or maybe 27-13? How does that give and take happen between an offensive coordinator and a defensive coordinator if you're going to try to run tempo like that? Kyle, you can pretend you're Roman for a second and give that answer.
Yeah, I mean, I think I think obviously the two coordinators have to be in clear communication. But I mean, like when you're talking about Golish, like Golish is going to run that offense. So if you're interviewing for defensive coordinator there, you know what you're signing up for. Giving up points today is almost inevitable. I don't care how good of a defense you have. It's just the game is molded towards an offensive, and I mean, it's entertainment, it's ratings. I mean, people like watching points be scored now. And so in the result, there's a lot of points being scored. But I think those offenses in general are just they demand so much communication from a defense and put so much stress on you play in and play out that if the one time you don't communicate properly, it could be 6.
Yeah. Look, we're about out of time. We'll get all this stuff worked out, everybody. But great stuff. Kyle Odell, great experiences, in the recruiting office at Alabama and the 49ers, Doug Dean, Frank Duffy on special assignment this week down in Palm Beach. But I want to say, again, thanks to all of our great sponsors like LandersFordMemphis.com, Poplar and Houston Levy, where Germantown and Collierville come together. As for Brad Bellamy, we'll get him back on hopefully Monday morning. But bottom line is this: if you need a new car, truck, or SUV, give Brad a call. Simplify it. They're also at I-240 in Mount Moriah in East Memphis, the iconic location, the old Dobbs location. They're there now. People like Kenny Myers at Landers, great people. They've been there a long time. And right down the street from Hewlett & Dunn Boot and Clothing Company on the historic square. Hewlett & Dunn, over 7,000 pairs of men's and women's boots. Barber, Filson, STS, Devil Dog Jeans. They've got the luggage. They got everything that you are looking for, and they're open every day of the week except Sunday. HewlettandDunn.com. In MyTown Roofing. Don't wait till your roof caves in. Get your roof replaced now. MyTownRoofing.com. And HempForPros.com. You got aches and pains, trouble sleeping, give them a ring. Order these gummies. They absolutely work. And we will see you Monday. Have a great weekend. Most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us. For executive producer Brendan Martin, I'm Rob Brown. Thanks for watching.